Hello and welcome to Getting to Know the Garnet. I'm your host, Brandon Hodnett. Today's special episode focuses on mental health, and I'll be talking with Amber Buller, a clinical psychologist who has been working with Swarthmore Athletics since 2018. Amber, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
So, Amber, first of all, just wanted to find out a little bit more about you. Can you tell us about your background and your practice that you're involved with?
Sure. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I've been practicing for longer probably than I care to admit. And majority of my practice or my whole practice is really around adolescents through young adults. So, and a big piece of it that I focus on is transition. So, kind of transitioning in different stages of life, different times and periods, different things that go through, because those can be pretty disruptive and often temporary if handled early and well in the beginning. So, that's sort of where my practice focuses. I have worked in a number of high school settings around the sort of tri-state area, and I do have a background in pediatric neuropsych, so I'm very comfortable with sort of the schooling issues all the way through up. Because of that, I worked in hospitals, so I feel comfortable in kind of medical complications or sports injuries and how that affects the overall well-being.
What's your work been like with Swarthmore? What's your role with Swarthmore?
It's been a lot of fun. I've only been doing this, I think, maybe 2 years. I started at the end of in the spring term. I think it was in 2018, and we try to kind of figure out lots of different ways to kind of address the needs and kind of connect with the students, the athletes, the coaching staff, and the staff in general. So I've done a bunch of different things. I've gone and met directly, sort of introduced more is probably a better way to describe it, myself to, I think, just about all the teams. I've helped with some teams sort of trying to address communication issues within the team. I've worked with some of the coaching staff to talk through kind of challenges that they are seeing with their teams and sort of trying to look at it that way. I make it super clear to everybody that I am not a sports psychologist. And the difference from what I do and what they do from my perspective is I'm really looking at the mental health and wellness of the athlete. I am not trying to help them score better, carve off time on their, running, all that kinds of, that's not what I do. I will argue that if you feel better, often we will perform better. And I think it's important to delineate the two because my approach is very different to that. And my hope and expectation for them is very open. So I don't have, when somebody comes to see me, I don't have any expectation other than to meet them where they are and try and sort through what's going on. So to that end, I've met with a number of students one-on-one, and it can be anywhere from weekly for just a couple of weeks to check-ins once a month to help with a certain specific issue to get through it. I've met with some athletes once and they just sort of needed an opportunity to vent and sort of get something off their chest, and then they don't need to talk again. And all of those are terrific and perfectly appropriate ways to utilize my time.
For you, what would you say is the most rewarding, most fulfilling part of the job for you?
I think it all is. I mean, I really enjoy the collegial atmosphere of working with people. Working with the teams, working with the coaches and the student athletes is just, whether it's in the parts or in the whole, it's just been really fun, frankly, and rewarding. I know some of the issues that come up are difficult and challenging, but I enjoy being a part of the solution, I hope. I enjoy helping people feel better, feel more confident, or finding their way to something. And some of the students really, it was more about helping connect with them to help them connect to something more permanent, because the role that way we've defined it is really a more of a temporary, like meeting people where they are, so I can be flexible and quick in action to help. So I enjoy that aspect of it, whether it's in my private practice or with Swarthmore, and it's particularly enjoyable working with such a diverse, smart, engaged community. It's been really rewarding for me.
Oh, that's good. As we're trying to get to know you a little bit better. What's something fun about you that we don't know? Something that you like to talk about? Something that would be fun to share about you?
Um, I don't know. I never talk about myself.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I enjoy travel. So, I've always enjoyed working with international students because I'm always curious about beyond our borders. I know the one thing that nobody knows about me that is always fun to toss out there is I actually am a multi-engine private pilot licensed person. I haven't flown in a while, but I always like to hold that in my back pocket, as that usually shocks people. My father was a pilot, so that's fun for me. And I'm married and I have two kids, so that kind of occupies a lot of my free time as well.
Wow. Well, that's cool. I never knew that about you.
That's why I
Multi.
hold it a secret.
Yeah. Oh my word. So when's the last time you flew?
Oh, it's been a long
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
probably before kids.
Okay. You mentioned that a lot of the work that you do is with transitions and these, working in those spaces and those seasons of life. There's a lot of transitions going
Oh yeah.
on right now. What are ways that students can, just take care of their mental health in these transitions, with everything going on in this semester, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the more one can define by routine, like create routines for themselves, is always the sort of a very important piece, especially in these times where our routines are completely upended. And if you are not living locally but are attending the school classes virtually, your time is all kind of askew depending on when those classes are going to hit, how you can watch them. So and especially for athletes who have very often next to no free time, right? They, between the practices, the games, the training and classes, their time is pretty much gone.
Mhm.
And so now all of a sudden they're not only losing the opportunity to play games with their peers, but they're also not training in the same way, and then quarantined or away from what your normal life has been. So everybody's routines have been completely upended. And the more we can find ways to give ourselves a routine, it gives us a sense of sort of stability and regularness. That does help, because then you can have some predictability to your schedule. It doesn't necessarily have to be monotonous and awful. I mean, it's just a routine of what you want to do when you get up, what you got to get done, really can help, because the more unroutine we become, the more kind of untethered we are. You just sort of are floating around. So I always am a big fan of routines, staying as connected as possible in these very odd times. It's not the same as reaching out and touching somebody, but the virtual opportunities are terrific. And if people are finding themselves to be Zoom fatigued, which is genuine and real, pick up the phone. Don't text, don't Snapchat or all those other things. Literally just pick up the phone and have a conversation, and maybe walk outside while you're having that conversation. It's just, again, it's about connecting, and then you hear the voice. You don't have to look at them to hear what's going on. So those kinds of things are really important. And then honoring the loss that you have,
Mhm.
whether you're a senior and your last season in college is now done in a way that you did not expect it to end, or a freshman who didn't expect to start out this way, or the juniors and sophomores who nobody expected this nor frankly wanted it. So to honor and understand that this is not permanent, this is not going to be the way it is forever. We've all lost something important to
Mhm.
us, and to recognize that, but don't let it define where we are, I think is important too.
Mhm. Can you just kind of expand on that idea of honoring that loss? Like, what's uh, kind of give me like a just really practical what it looks like. For someone that's a senior, they've lost their senior season. What does it look like for them to honor that loss?
I think it's to figure out what is it that they're most disappointed by.
Mhm.
Is it missing the actual competitive season, playing games, or competing in however that defined by your sport? Or is it missing, this the traditional idea you have in your mind of what college experience is? So whatever it is for that person, to recognize that that's a loss, that you're disappointed by it, I've had I'm recommended to some students where you have this very paper thin paper. It's almost like a tissue paper, but it's specific for this. And they're called wishing papers, I believe it is. And you just write what you've missed or what you're sad by or what you wish for. And then you light it and it sort of goes off into this
Hmm.
air. You can actually, some of these papers can be done indoors or outdoors. But what I like about that, it's formalizing or visualizing the wish or the loss and allowing it to go. Because I think that the more we sit and stew in it, venting is a beautiful thing and very healthy. But there's there's a difference between stewing in the sadness and venting and moving through it. And it's hard because I think we all can get caught up in this. I mean, I'm not an athlete. I'm not missing my senior year of competition. And it is an upended year for me as well. So I think to be able to understand that this isn't permanent, to recognize what I have missed
Mhm.
and how ways I can get it back. Now, if I'm an athlete, I can't get back a season, but no pandemic can take away from the fact that they're an athlete. That is who they are. That is how they've defined themselves, and no one can take that away. It's a disappointing occurrence for sure. So so to answer your question, I think the more we can figure out what it is we've missed, what it is that is really at the root of the sadness or disappointment, and name it and then move through it, I think would be helpful.
um the holidays are coming up, and the holidays can be a really joyous time for a lot of people, but also a really stressful occasion. And with things may look different this year,
Yeah.
what are ways that people can deal with holiday stress?
Holiday stress is always there.
Yeah.
I think the best thing we can do for ourselves is what I would refer to as boundaries. Like understand where your limits are, and how to avoid crossing them. Because when we start to cross our boundaries is when things sort of start to fall apart. And recognize what you need. So you may not be able to be having Thanksgiving dinner with however it looks for you, aunts, uncles, parents, grandparents, friends, but you certainly could set aside time to do a huge family Zoom, and maybe everybody brings their meal and it's a weird way, but at least you're seeing each other. There are new ways to create sort of fun traditions, games, sort of connections. Or if you're just worn out, then give yourself that permission not to participate in that as well. Um, and it's a fine line between honoring what we need and avoiding. And I think that there's a lot of research right now that's showing that in some regards, the college age, high school age student is managing this sort of newness, weirdness better actually than people older than them, because we weren't raised to be on a flat screen or engage with it in the same way that they have been. So I wish I could say do this and it'll be fine. It's so variable to the individual.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to ask you is, I feel like there are a couple different approaches to mental health, like comparing a reactive approach where you're responding to something that's happened to you versus a proactive approach, like doing things proactively. Have you seen more people taking proactive steps to take care of their mental health, and would you encourage that for most people?
Well, absolutely. Even non-pandemic times, like,
Yeah.
right. I think the more proactive we can be, and proactive is really knowing yourself, knowing your limits, knowing your boundaries, knowing when you're fatigued, when what you need, when you're feeling in certain ways. And again, that's really about the individual. But the more proactive we can be, the healthier we stay. And that's not to say that things won't be stressful and times won't be difficult and or times won't be amazing, but the more we can get in front of it and keep ourselves healthy, the more we can withstand sort of the stress and changes that are normal in life. Um, but it's also common to be reactive, right? So, And again, this pandemic is a perfect example. Nobody could have really known that this was going to happen. We are going to have to react to it. Um, but in this time and reaction, I would hope that people have had an opportunity to slow down and self-reflect as to what they value, what they really need. And I have seen that in a number of students who've just reached out to just check in, talk about things, and move on. Some will, and like I said earlier, some will just check in once in a while. Some do a one-time check-in. Um, some are recognizing that they have had things that they've needed to talk about and have never taken the time to do it. So I think it's really all over the place in a good way.
And for student athletes, how much does being physically active play a role in mental health?
Well, I think being physically active plays a role, period,
Yeah.
in mental health, athlete or not. But then if you talk about an athlete with a fine-tuned sort of, fit body that then has to go sort of more sedentary, that can be a shock on many levels. One, their body's not used to being sedentary or more sedentary. And then sort of mentally or emotionally for them, when they see themselves not being able to do the things that they were able to do, or they aren't at the fitness level that they were in the prime of competing. Some students have been having a very hard time with that. It is probably extraordinarily difficult to maintain that level of fitness with, if not being able to get into gyms and pools and having to rely on the outdoors and moving into the winter seasons. If you're in an urban environment, it's very different than if you're in a rural environment. So it's really all over the map as to who can maintain their fitness. But I would say for those that can engage, however defined, I was talking on one of the Zoom groups of, I think it was a lacrosse player, just grabbed some friends that they'd been potting with and threw the ball around just to connect with the sport and themselves. I thought that was brilliant. Same with some basketball players doing the same thing, maintaining the safety and distance. Again, that was before the surge we're having right now. But I think in principle, it's the same thing. Like if you can't do it with others, at least you could do it yourself. If your sport allows for, that kind of, hitting a ball, kicking a ball, throwing a ball, whatever it is, the runners can get out and run and engage in their sport as best they can. Some sports are going to be more challenging to participate in that and maybe find different ways. But I think the fitness is hard.
Amber, we're coming to the close of the interview, and I just wanted to ask, how can students get in touch with you?
There is an email that goes directly to me. It's called Garnet Healthy Mind. Also, all coaches have my email. All coaches have my cell phone number. I am perfectly open to anybody reaching out to me in any way they need. I If kids want to go to CAPS and not me, that's fine. If they want to try me out and then be referred to CAP, like I will meet anybody in any way that they need to see what this is about and maybe start to feel a little bit better.
That's great. Amber, any last words, any last thoughts you want to share?
No, other than I just really appreciate the opportunity to try and get out and get in front of the community. It's hard, getting out under the normal circumstances. And I've really enjoyed my time working with the student athletes. I hope that they'll find me in some way and be helpful, whether it's for a brief check-in or an opportunity to really try to dig into something. But I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and get my face out there.